Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to those of you based in Connecticut. We are very excited to be here at Mark Twain Library's Travel Dreaming Conversations. Today, focusing on Central America and specifically the Coppola family getaways. So thinking about where should we go next and what should we do? So for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, we are very happy to be here as part of the Mark Twain Library, which is a privately run institution here in Reading, Connecticut, and a group that always tends to travel and think about travel dreaming all over the world. So we have this continued series that began all the way back last year, and we bring on some of the most fascinating speakers to unlock the secrets of where we will all be either traveling next or dreaming about traveling next. My name is Angela Caes. I am delighted to be here as a representative of the Adult Programming Committee with Mark Twain Library, as well as my own business person owning a travel company that is based locally. These are my recent pictures of traveling in Texas with my family, but really I represent a company that tries to put people in the world to make sure that they see the world, where they fit in, how they fit in, and traveling in the best way possible. But let's talk about where we're actually going today. What's brilliant about today's conversation is it's about a visionary, Francis Ford Coppola, and his dream of bringing people somewhere new, bringing them into his life, giving them an insider glimpse to how he likes to travel, eat, drink. Many of you may know his wines, as well as stay. So what I loved is this was a Travel and Leisure article from several years ago that said, you know what, a good movie is like a 2-hour vacation. You have to have an amazing backdrop. You have to have an immersive experience. You have to have kind of do it for me favorite foods and then full entertainment built in. So I am delighted today to be introducing all the way from California. Welcome, Christine Gaudenzi, who has worked in hospitality for more than 25 years, but specifically since 2012 has been working with the Coppola family, knows them very well, intimately, I would say. And also, as I say, it takes a genius to work with a creative genius. So we have her today who is going to share with us all about these hideaways and something that I think many people are unfamiliar with, which is a concept of Central American safari, a safari that is truly only possible if you go ahead and take some of these hideaway opportunities and link them together. So without further ado, I turn it over to you, Christine. Thank you very much for joining us today and welcome to the Mark Twain Library's Travel Dreaming Series.
Thank you very much, Angela. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to learn about the Mark Twain Library Travel Dreaming Series. We've all been in the state of dreaming about travel much more than actually physically traveling. And I think we've all been looking for silver linings of recent months and a very, very long year, the 16-month year. And the fact that you're putting this beautiful content out and giving people time to really study a bit more on where they might want to go. Throughout the world, there's lots of great places, but we're going to hone in today on Belize and Guatemala, where Francis Ford Coppola accidentally became a hotelier, is the way I like to describe it. So without further ado, I'll tell you a little bit about that story because I work for a storyteller. So we're here to share his vision. Francis literally did say this on a stage a couple of years ago at an event in New York with Condé Nast Traveler magazine. He was talking about all the things he loves to do, filmmaking, winemaking, but when it referred to hotels and what he's created, he made a little fun at one of the famous lines from The Godfather that it's really very, very personal to him. And that might sound like a bit of a cliche, but really it isn't. These are spots, all of these hideaways, as he refers to them, versus calling them resorts. Or hotels even, are all have a personal story for he and his family, and are places they have been involved in curating literally every single detail. We'll point out a few of the details while we're chatting today, but we'll mostly try to convey kind of the bigger story of why they came to be and why you as travelers might enjoy them, because there's a variety of offerings. We're not going to focus so much in on, which is the best room or those kind of details. You can get all that from working directly with Angela, peeking at a website. It's more, what's the story behind these? What's the vision? Why would I even go to these particular destinations? So I always like to start out to orient people. I didn't grow up looking at maps enough. I'm not really good at it still to this day. But this gives you a sense of Belize and Guatemala and where Francis has these beautiful hideaways. And it started here, this first triangle here, sort of central in the country, about a 2-hour drive from the one international airport that Belize has here in Belize City is Belancano Lodge. So that was the first hotel. He bought it as an abandoned lodge in the early 80s when Belize actually had just become Belize versus British Honduras. And why in the world would a man who lives in California want to go to Belize and buy this lodge? He actually was pursuing buying an island in the Philippines where he shot Apocalypse Now. And his wife of now well over 60 years, I think, said, no, that is not happening. We need to get back to California. You just bought a winery. What do you know about winemaking? We're not coming to the Philippines again anytime soon. But years later, somebody said, go see Belize. It's going to remind you of that jungle, that tropical, amazing setting that you had in the Philippines when you shot Apocalypse Now. So he did. He went with his eldest son, discovered Belancano Lodge, bought it as a personal retreat, and then in the early 90s, turned it into a hideaway for the rest of us to enjoy. He combined that with a seafront hotel, the second triangle you see here, Turtle Inn, because Belize has the second largest barrier reef in the world. You really want to do a combo stay, get those Mayan ruin, jungle, hiking, cave exploration, zip lining, inland adventures, combined with adventures on the sea. And you can do that in a week. If you've got 10 days, get over that border to Guatemala, because you can do what we call a Central American safari in just 10 days' time. So what is unique about these properties? Sustainability is something a lot of folks are talking about when it comes to travel now, and I think the generations to come are going to talk about it even more than our generations, the generation before us did. This became very important as we came out of the pandemic slowly. The hotels were closed for 7 months in Belize. The borders reopened November 1 for flights to resume. And we realized in that pause that we actually were always designed to be perfect for social distancing, sheltering in place, having a complete immersion in nature and culture without really ever being in a crowd. Again, back to the name of the brand, Hideaways. These are hidden away places that aren't in mass touristic areas in Belize. So privacy and seclusion, you can imagine, as a filmmaker and a fairly famous person, Francis and his daughter Sophia Coppola, who's also very recognizable, when they come to these places, you'd be surprised if they're there, they'll chat with you. They like the idea of having some privacy and seclusion when they're on a holiday. So this is that first one I mentioned, Belancano Lodge. I just want to give you a quick visual of the gorgeous setting, these thatched roof accommodations that he built all along this beautiful river, again, to about 2-hour drive up a mountaintop in Belize. It couldn't feel more off the beaten path. The entire property sustains power through a hydro system Francis had built here on the river back in the early 90s. Honestly, the locals thought he was crazy because nobody was doing that kind of sustainability and ecotourism at the time, but it was important to him that we didn't have generators up there, and we were preserving what that reserve was supposed to be. It's actually a total, it's odd to think, right? At the top of a mountain in Belize, you've got pine trees, you've got more tropical fauna, and it's a very unique setting, and he wanted to really preserve that. And then this companion property, Turtle Inn, the similarities you'll see, of course, on the water. Here you're on the sea versus the river at Belancano Lodge. And like Belancano, every one of those accommodations is an individual thatched roof, 2-bedroom villa or single bedroom cottage or cabana. So if you are traveling alone, you are traveling as a couple, or you're traveling as in a multi-gen family, you each have your own accommodation that is your home during your stay, which is another thing that leads to that feeling of privacy and seclusion. But let's get you educated on why in the world would I go to Belize? What is there to see and do there? So as I mentioned, water. We'll start with the water. It is the second largest barrier reef in the world. It is a very approachable experience for completely novice snorkelers to incredibly experienced divers. One of the things that is unique to the Coppola properties, got to point out a whale shark because we're actually in whale shark season right now. That's a bucket list for many divers. When you stay at Turtle Inn, our seafront property in Belize, everything you will experience alongside one of our employees. So whether you want to get dive certified, you are going to be with our staff that do dive certification. We have our own dive shop. Whether you want to ride horses at Blancano Lodge, we have our own horses, we have our own horse guide. So everything you're going to do, which is kind of unique, which Angela probably knows in our industry of travel, is all going to be self-contained with our own team who have been trained in a very hospitable style, which is honestly kind of the natural way of Belizeans anyway. Now I'm pointing in a couple of inland adventures. This is Big Rock Falls. It is a good 45-minute hike or about a 20-minute horseback ride from Blancano Lodge up on that mountaintop. You can picnic there, go into a very safe, amazing swimming hole. If you're more adventurous, you can climb the rocks and jump in. That's not for me, but it is for some people. And then Mayan ruins. This is one entry to one Mayan experience. The Maya culture is very rich in Belize. And I think it's what distinguishes it from a lot of Central America locations. We get compared a lot to Costa Rica. Costa Rica is about surf and heavier wave and beautiful rainforest inland experiences, whereas Belize is about that barrier reef, snorkeling, diving, no surfing, and then inland getting to see some Mayan cultural history. This particular one happens to be an exploration where you do literally nothing. You're in the front. The tour guide is paddling you into a cave where you're going to see these Mayan artifacts. It's really a very approachable and easy adventure. There is another cave adventure called ATM, which is for the more adventurous in general, because it's more of a 7-hour, 8-hour commitment, and you're climbing through rocks and crevices as you see Mayan artifacts. There are experiences here the National Geographic has recognized. ATM, that cave that I just mentioned, is considered one of the top 10 most sacred caves in the world. And then here, Caracol, we are the closest resort, hideaway lodge to Caracol, about an hour away from Caracol. And actually, that's how Francis tells a little bit of the story. He just didn't intend to have a hotel. He intended to have a personal retreat up in the mountains of Belize that he can enjoy, write films, spend time with his family, invite extended family. And one day he started getting phone calls saying, well, we need a place to stay. We're doing the excavation of these Mayan ruins at Caracol. So again, truly an accidental hotelier, but once he knew he was in the hotel business, he wanted to create very beautiful places. And I don't think you could argue just in seeing a few of these photographs, he did quite a good job on that.
But you know, Christine, I think
yes,
you bring up an amazing point. And just to interject, I love what you have said about the idea of an inclusive, immersive experience. And I just want to let folks know, if you were listening in from home, you know, to get to Belize, we're talking about 6-7 hours from New York. We're talking about American Airlines out of Miami with direct route, or if you're a Delta fan, out of Atlanta, or if you're out of Houston, United. But what's really important is that people often think, oh, to do some of these experiences, it's going to be really difficult to get to. And these are experiences that are accessible, but even more so accessible when you're there. It's not that you are literally contacting 18 different operators and dive shops and people to make it happen for you. Because you're getting invited literally into somebody else's home, their sense of their property, their resort, he has done everything he can with his company to put it together and make it as easy as possible. So, you know, it may sound like, wow, you can do some great active stuff. The truth is you can. You can be as active as you want. But I also want to let you know that if you start Googling this, you will see people with their 4-year-old children and their 88-year-old grandparents also enjoying the experience. So it truly is what you make of it. And that's, I just wanted to pause and just reemphasize that point, because you know, Belize, sometimes people can think, oh, it's so exotic, and it is. but it is your step up from Costa Rica. It is truly your next step into, we didn't even talk animals, but the ability to see incredible wildlife, have incredible food, and then of course, Turtle Inn, which I know you're going to jump to, but I just wanted to emphasize that point.
Yes.
It's so critical to understand.
Yes, thanks for doing so. Yes, Belize is quite easy to get to. It shocks even friends of mine, who I've been doing this job for 8 years, and they'll say, "You're going back to Belize? Oh, that must be a haul." And even from California, it's a connecting flight through Houston. It's quite easy. There's no real time difference. It's either 1 hour or 2 hours, depending on the time of year. So no jet lag. And because these two properties are owned by one family, the experiences of combining them is completely seamless. And you really can, in a 7-day trip, see such vast contrast of experiences. And we're going to handle all the details. So whether you're someone that just mostly wants pool and hammock time in this is Francis's personal accommodation at Turtle Inn. This one happens to come with its own private pool. And if we were on that dining porch there looking out, you'd be looking right out at the Caribbean Sea. Or you want to have 3 adventures a day, we'll work that all out for you. We just really want to have a dialogue about who you are as a traveler, what you want to learn culturally when you're abroad, and how much downtime you want to have to enjoy these beautiful accommodations. A couple of things I'll point out. The Coppolas spent a lot of time in Bali, and every one of these chandeliers, carved doors, they personally picked out these tables, these batiks. As a matter of fact, I was just with Eleanor Coppola here at the property, and a couple of the batik pillow covers had been recovered by someone, and she did not approve because they weren't truly vintage batiks. So authenticity is one of the 3 pillars of all of Francis's companies. It's an overused word, I think, in travel and in the world, but I can assure you it is something that's lived every day in these properties. This happens to be a 2-bedroom villa. I'd just like to point out, you walk out 20 steps barefoot out to the Caribbean Sea right from your guest room. It's just glorious. There are lots of great resorts in Belize. We don't kid ourselves to think we're the only ones there. So why would you choose the Coppola properties? But besides the fact you might be a Coppola fan or intrigued about maybe what he created there, every other really destination resort throughout the country tends to have fairly limited amenities. Definitely on the wine and dine side of things, the Coppola properties actually have, here at Blancano Lodge, on the left here, we have 3 different dining experiences. My absolute favorite that I like to point out is this is a 3.5-acre farm, we should call it, instead of a garden. You arrive, you're handed a cocktail that's made by the garden ingredients. You stroll the garden with the head gardener to understand the organic farming practices. And then you come back and have a 3-course vegetarian meal. And that's one of just 3 dining experiences for just a 20 cottage hotel. Quite unique to have that much variety. So if you have the time to stay longer, nothing is going to feel tedious about being there. There are a lot of beautiful resorts in the world, and particularly Belize, but they've got one good restaurant. It might, you might be a little tired of the same menu every night. Comparably, Turtle Inn, the seafront property, has 5 cuisines and 3 restaurants, from Belizean local food to seafood to a grill. And my favorite night in Mare Restaurant is an Indonesian rice taffel night. So if you've not had that opportunity, that was added to the menu because our general manager is Dutch and he thought it would be a great addition. I did point out the privacy and seclusion. These images just highlight that. Again, that's one of the accommodations at Blancano where you cannot see another accommodation from your dwelling. This one again has a private pool. This is something new to the collection. This is a 20-minute boat ride away from our seafront hotel, Turtle Inn. You can have an island at a phenomenal price, actually, as an exclusive experience. As a matter of fact, you can only stay at Coral Cay. Even though there are 3 cottages on the island, we only book it for 1 group at a time, whether that group be 1 single person, which we've had, a couple who maybe is a honeymoon or an anniversary, or they just never stayed on a private island, or an extended family of up to 10 people. That's a fun thing to wrap into the Turtle Inn experience. And our kind of hero, as we call it, an industry glamour shot of Turtle Inn. This is a little bit larger than Blancano, 27 accommodations, still so intimate. as I mentioned, multiple dining venues. And both properties, I should mention, have, back to authenticity, spas. But they have Thai massage therapists because Francis, when he was in Thailand, had the best massage of his life. And now some lovely people from Thailand have relocated their lives to Belize, and they deliver all the spa services at the two locations.
You know, Christine, before we leave Belize,
Yes.
couple of questions that I always get asked. So secluded resort sounds great. Belize, lots going on. Bugs, time of year. How friendly am I going to get with some resident snakes or bugs?
Yes.
Tell us about what it's like. You know, is there a time of year that we should definitely go? Is there a time of year we should avoid? We're close to the equator, so
Yes.
when is it less sweaty? You know.
Yes. Well, you know, when you hear tropical, there's going to be bugs. Anywhere you're going, anywhere in the world, I'm not going to fabricate that part of the story because there are. What I've learned in my 26 times of having made trips to these properties, it really kind of depends on the person. Some people are just bug attractors and are more sensitive to a bite. If you take vitamin B, 2 weeks before a trip, it can help, they say. I've yet to do it because I always forget. I just simply tell friends and family who have joined me on many a trip, get up, spray yourself with whatever bug spray you prefer, whether you prefer something natural or something with a lot of DEET. Enjoy your day and do it again at dusk, about 5 o'clock. That's when those little creatures come out. And travel with Benadryl in case you're someone who's reactive. But it's not a misery by any point. If you want to avoid, because I will tell you, our hotels are not air conditioned. You're really not completely sustainable if you're an air conditioned resort. Also, it was critical to Francis that you hear those birds and that wildlife when you have these experiences. So it's not going to happen. We have a couple of bedrooms and a couple of villas when it's a deal breaker that we can work out air conditioning. So talk to us about that. Work with Angela and we'll work with her. I would avoid hurricane season. That said, there hasn't been a bigger hurricane since 2001. But so, you know, maybe avoid late September or early October.
Right. No, that's great.
Jumping over the border, and we can come back and ask more questions on Belize or anything. I'm happy to do so. This is La Lancha. So this was the third in that trilogy of Central American experiences. It is just over the border from Blanquenot Lodge, about a 2.5-hour drive. It's completely seamless, easy experience for us to get you there. So that imagine 10 days, you can do 2 countries. And a bucket list item for many people, CT Call, which we're very close to at La Lancha. I will tell you at the moment, that ground border is not open. Flights have just started. I myself am headed down to Belize and combining it with Guatemala in about 10 days, but I'm flying to Guatemala City and then taking a small flight over to La Lancha. So it's a little more of a hassle right now to combine them. If you want to do it via ground, if you want to do it via flight, it's doable. It's a matter of personal preference and when those borders open back up. This is just 10 rooms on the second largest lake in the country, Lake Petanitza. Guatemala is completely different than Belize. You cross the terrain and the border and you're just shocked at how things feel different. It is a lake region. It is completely immersive Mayan experiences, a very hilly country, and it's much more Latin influenced. It wasn't a British colony. So people speak Spanish here. The food's got, a lot more interesting spicy flavor than you're going to find in Belize. And, I get asked a lot. I will say of all the hotels I've ever worked for in my career, people are a little not so sure about Guatemala. And I, again, will tell you, I've been dozens of times, and it is not something to be feared, certainly by any means. It's a very safe country. You don't want to be in Guatemala City at midnight walking the streets as alone as a traveler. But going to Guatemala and seeing what you want to see as a curious nomad doesn't really include Guatemala City. That's a pass-through of an airport. It's Antigua. It's where we are in Lake Petanitza near Tikal. Here's Tikal, which if you're only going to see one Mayan ruin in your whole life, this is the one. Star Wars was shot in this area. You know, it is uh, completely awe-inspiring. And to Angela's point earlier, our tour guides know when to take you when there's not going to be a crowd. So we're doing, you know, sunrise tours that they know their way around that park and what groups might come when. And then, of course, if you're traveling sooner than later, you're not going to see the crowds you may have seen anyway. Horseback riding is something else we can offer while you're staying with us at La Lancha. If you make it during one of the religious festivals, it'd be an amazing time to be in town. I've yet to do it, but there's an amazing Easter celebration that happens in Antigua, Guatemala every year. But Angela could help you work out an itinerary to do a completely Guatemalan intensive experience, combining Atitlan, where we are, and maybe Antigua. Great combination. I just want to point out, I'm sure a lot of other hoteliers say this, but it really doesn't matter how beautiful your hotel is, who owns it and how they created it. It matters who you hire and how great they are and how happy they are. And the biggest compliments we ever get are about our team. This is Suseli. She's one of the servers / private attendants at Turtle Inn. Some of the accommodations come with private attendants. That means she's with you and your family literally 24/7 your whole stay, on radio, anything you need, babysit the kids. She's your server in the restaurant when you're there. You know, we're hiring all local people who are so proud to share their cultural stories. I have seen folks, guests be invited into the homes of our teams, and I know they remain pen pals for many, many years. Any other questions on Central America before I just give a little taste of Italy, because we always want a taste of Italy?
You know what, while people are thinking about your questions, and certainly type them on in if you have any, tell us a wee bit about Italy, because we always get asked, it must be the Godfather, and we always get asked, is there not one in Italy?
Yes.
Is there only one in Italy? Maybe that's the question. Why is there only one in Italy?
There is only one in Italy, and it is in a region that even the most experienced European travelers tend to not know about. And it's a region a lot of Italians haven't been to, called Basilicata. You may have heard of Puglia. Puglia's gotten a lot of great press the last 5 to 10 years and has gotten more popular here. These are, by the way, are about an hour's flight down from Rome, to give you an orientation to how you would combine it with another area, or a 2.5-hour drive from the Amalfi Coast. So combining Puglia with Basilicata, where we are, along with the Amalfi Coast, would be an amazing itinerary. The reason Francis chose to restore a palazzo that is only 9 rooms, that is located here, is because and it's from the late 1800s, his grandfather was raised in this town, not just the region, but the actual town. And Francis had heard his grandfather talk about the region, and Francis was the first Coppola to return after his grandfather immigrated to the United States, and he just could not get over what he saw. The food and the wine were completely different than the rest of Italy. There were so many beautiful touristic sites. This is Matera. It's a UNESCO World Site 40 minutes away. If you want to, because I know, given this is Mark Twain Library, you love great content. If you were a fan of Anthony Bourdain and the way he really dove into culture, one of his last episodes of not his final season, but season 10, you can find on CNN, Parts Unknown, and let him educate you as to this whole region. But he did have a wonderful 4-course meal here with Francis at Palazzo Margherita. This is Matera that I mentioned, this UNESCO site. The entire town is nothing but cave dwellings. And folks lived in these caves with their livestock and without running water until the 1950s. It was considered the shame of Italy, actually. The Italian government came in and provided better, more stable, and comfortable housing for the folks there. And it became a UNESCO site, and everything started to be restored. And now there's just beautiful galleries and museums, and of course, historical tours to understand how that cave system worked. Shocks people to know that we are 10 minutes away from gorgeous beaches on the Ionian Sea. You're probably not going to get to the beach at Amalfi because of the rockiness and the cliffs and all of that. But here, as you sandwich it between going to Puglia, you can be in a gorgeous summer beach, I recommend that in the spring, summer. Think of it as an East Coast kind of summer. You're not going to be on that beach unless maybe for a walk in the fall, it'll be more chilly. The largest national park is right near us in this region, Polino National Park. So you're going to work off all those calories that you have because you got to eat when you're here. It's not just about eating, it's about learning the artisan ways. And this is a 400-year-old oven that the general manager takes you to this working farm to learn how to make the focaccia. It's an Italian immersive experience, right down to, we actually have a cinema at the property. This is the property itself on the main square of this charming little kind of gritty, simple village. This is what it looks like when you walk in. This is one of 5 dining experiences for only 9 palatial sized guest rooms. But one of the things, I guess I don't have it in here, is we have a cinema. And for years, we didn't have any of the Coppola films in the cinema because Francis did not want people to have an American Italian experience. He wanted them to have an Italian experience. So he only picked his favorite Italian films. But by popular request, we finally said, Francis, people want to sit in your place and watch The Godfather. So we finally acquiesced. It is something you can do. I'm just going to point a couple more things out. I would encourage you, if you're an Instagram person and you want to find a quick way to see what people are saying about staying with us now, given all we've been through in pandemic travel, please take a look. You can certainly go directly to TripAdvisor, but to make it even easier, we have it here on our Instagram, and the reviews are just better than they were always good, but people needed this vacations that they've been on recently more than ever, and the accolades are just absolutely humbling. It'll give you a sense of how safe it feels to be there. I myself went with my husband and his 16-year-old son for 100 days. I have a bit of survivor's guilt for fleeing the pandemic, but I wanted to be there on the ground to reopen the properties alongside my colleagues, the general managers. And frankly, our 16-year-old was doing online school, which was quite tedious and challenging for him. It was a lot more fun to do online school than break away to do some waterfalls and some fishing.
So you had the secret. You knew. For everyone
Yes.
listening, we're all very jealous. For those of us with children or with grandchildren, you understand. I think it's a great time to point out, though, especially when we're talking about Belize, that vaccinated travelers, just to give you a quick COVID update, vaccinated travelers are welcome into the country. There is a health declaration form as well as apps that you are required to fill out. However, if you are not yet vaccinated, they do simply require testing on through with varying degrees of the number of hours before you travel to make those tests. But I think it is one of the 16 countries that the United States has an agreement that you are allowed to travel to as a vaccinated traveler. And for that reason, I think not only are they hideaways, but these are also areas that will become more and more popular as people start to think about where are the other places they might be visiting in the world without meeting lots and lots and lots of people and having that experience that is a bucket list experience. We've all been through a lot. So people are looking for what's big and unique. I do have a question that came in about swimming with the whale sharks, which is the largest fish, as my daughter will tell me, largest fish in the world. If I was a novice diver, I've dived, the Great Barrier Reef. My husband said some of those air bubbles, that was my brain going with, if I've dove several times, but I'm not by any chance an advanced diver, is that an experience that's accessible?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can, even if you've got a long enough trip, which is another trend that we're seeing, people want to really, no pun intended, take a deep dive into their travel and stay in a place longer, get to understand and study abroad. I call it the local culture. So if you're there for, 2 weeks, you could actually get PADI certified while staying with us and get out on a whale shark dive if you catch the timing. I'll say this, we never promise it. They can be elusive, those whale sharks. They come out within so many days of the full moon. There's all these ways that we plan it. But it's certainly, if you're a diver and that's on your bucket list, get to us by the end of June so that you can maybe make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds simply amazing. And in general, do you find that people come down for a certain length of time? Do you advise people to travel? You know, let's say they had only the opportunity to do Belize, and the idea of putting together both the lodge and the inn was really appealing. What's the recommended amount of time? You know, if you had to do it for friends and family, how would you put them together?
You know, pre-pandemic, I would have said a week to be able to combine Blankenau Lodge and Turtle Inn. So you've got, you know, and again, because the travel too isn't so arduous that you need a recovery day from travel. I mean, you arrive, you have a lovely dinner, and you're out on adventures the next day. Again, no jet lag. Um, so you could cover both destinations in a week. I am finding that people want to go on fewer trips right now and want to immerse themselves in a longer stay, that we've all been through a lot. And you know, people don't want to feel so rushed. You know, this another silver lining of the pandemic is we all, I hope, slowed down a little bit. I know that I certainly did. My life didn't feel as reactive, and I too often was on a plane for work every couple of weeks. So the idea of, well, maybe we're not going to go on quite as many trips as we used to, but let's go to a place and really, really, really get to know it. Maybe volunteer when you're there, or do something from the locals, right? You can do everything from Spanish classes when you stay with us. We actually now have a Coppola curriculum so that you make sure you walk away with some kind of education before you leave. It could be from uh, learning how to paint masks in Guatemala, to tortilla making lessons, to true Mayan history lessons, or, you know, beyond the typical let's get dive certified while I'm on holiday. So you know, if you can go longer, take 2 weeks. Go see, you know, 5 things in the jungle and on the mountain, and get enough time on the sea that you've got downtime to just enjoy that hammock and that relaxed time. But cycle, you know, ride one of our bikes into the charming little fishing village, go out on a fishing trip one day, learn how to spear lobster. I mean, you know, do more than the typical check the bucket top 3 tours that somebody does in a destination. Do those more elusive things that people maybe haven't heard of, and allows you to really get to know the history of this country.
For sure. And we open up for any other questions. Should I suppose, do you have more to share? Should I share my screen?
You can share your screen now.
That's terrible.
You
Sharing
knocked me off.
screens. As people have questions coming in, certainly feel free to raise your hand or ask them. I think I have heard that some of the fans at the lodge were actually from set pieces of Apocalypse Now. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yeah, well, it was true. The fan actually, it had its last day. We had a ceiling fan that is the famous fan from the opening scene, Apocalypse Now, with Martin Sheen. And we no longer have that fan in the Jaguar Bar at Blankenau Lodge. But Blankenau Lodge, their decor, I kind of highlighted the Balinesian decor at Turtle Inn, is a lot of beautiful Guatemalan textiles. Eleanor Coppola, Francis's wife, is one of the top 2 collectors of textiles in the world. It's a personal passion of hers. So everything you see has been hand selected by her and is vintage, authentic. She's very discerning to make sure we're educating people about that craft while they're staying with us.
Ah, oh, I think so. They're seeing me. I think I'm on. Is that better? Oh, that's a very strange side we're seeing. You're right. Pardon me. Let me stop sharing my screen so I get it right. One of the other questions that we had come in, and now you all know for Mother's Day, maybe what Eleanor wants, which is more textiles. That's amazing. Wow. I would like to be at one of the lodges. So if my husband is on this call, he can decide. But one of the other questions we are getting is, do you have any insider information about Italy opening up?
We have to determine an opening date. I think the goal is June 1, but you know, we probably all read the headlines about a week ago that the EU is going to open for American travelers. What I would suggest that we get back to you with, Angela, is to really let you know what is open, right? So just because, and I'm just saying this for anywhere, for France, Italy, anywhere, just because a hotel might open, you really want to know if the destination has opened all of their unique offerings. Basilicata, where we are, never was a mass tourism destination, even though you need to stay at Palazzo Margherita a good 4 nights to see and cover that region. You were never going to see a crowd either way. But boy, would it be a nice time to go to Rome and combine it with Southern Italy and not be 5 queued up at the Trevi Fountain, right? So I believe we'll be reopening June 1. That was the intention all along. We were just waiting for the EU to reopen. It is only 9 guest rooms, so book early because, you know, the pent-up demand for Italy, I think, is probably the biggest pent-up demand that's up there.
I agree. And so we've heard it here that, let's see, anytime I would say November forward, definitely for Belize, if not earlier, depending on your travel schedule. But these are areas that do book up very, very quickly. And a lot of people think about for family getaways, major milestones, things like that, where you have a lot of different ages. And as you can see here, they are certainly able to cater, but not only cater, to bring you somewhere that I know would blow my family's mind, just the idea of getting out to some of these more remote places in the world without traveling 24 hours. It is a very quick travel and a really great one to do. We are so excited, and I know I will re-put this up here because I would like to meet this man one day. I think he's very interesting. But for those of you who want to learn more, remember Apocalypse Now, 1979. Yes, it is the year I was born. It's out there. But also Godfather, Peggy Sue Got Married. I mean, the number of titles that you would be able to maybe trace back, either places he travels or he has a connection to, or wine, if you were all interested. I'm sure many of you know of his places out in California as well. But again, what I'm most interested in is that he interweaves it. So I almost think it is a disservice to call these places hotels. They are truly destinations. They are what I will call a family homestead, a place where you go and you share a little bit about what's important to them, whether it is the furniture or the experience or what you get out of that in food. And Christine has done such an amazing job today of sharing that with us all. And I do hope that you know to come into Mark Twain Library, read a little more of those books and figure out where you're going to go. But I will say that interviews, as well as that 7 or 10 day Central American Safari, you can always get in contact with me, or I will be happy to put you in contact with Christine. Certainly there are so many different avenues out there, and we want to make sure that you see these amazing parrotfish. I've been to the first and the third best barrier reefs, which is #1, Great Barrier Reef in Australia, #2, Belize, and #3, for those of you who don't know, Turks and Caicos, which is another close to destination. But I will leave you out of here that this is a quote that I found from Francis Ford Coppola, and I loved it because he said, "It doesn't make sense what I've done. I've put together hideaways that are illogical, and it's just because I was attracted to that place," which is great. It's what you do when you have lots of money. This is a good thing, folks. But what he does is he's giving of himself and giving of his family. And so every aspect of it that I think Christine has shared is a reflection of their family values and what they want to share in that destination. So I will just pause and check if there's any other comments or shares, but I want to thank you on behalf of Mark Twain Library, Christine. This has been magical. We have been able to go all over the world, and believe it or not, our next stop is Japan. Much further away, folks, far, far, far away. So Belize and Guatemala, and a snippet there about Basilicata in Italy. We truly appreciate your time today. We appreciate all of you for joining our conversation, and hope that you join us at another time, either for Japan, South Africa, or one of the many events that the library will be putting on. Stay tuned to your social media and your email for more details. Until then, I wish you all a wonderful evening and hope you have an amazing afternoon. Thank you for travel dreaming with us. Thank you, Christine. Enjoy the rest of your day out in California, and we shall see you at another time.
Ciao.
Bye.